Yo, bro, hear me out real quick. Hear me out here, alright? I know that I am super late on this, but the Juice WRLD album, pretty fire. Pretty fire. Been listening to that shit non-fucking stop the past 3 days, but I know that's not why you're here, alright? I know that's not why you're here. So let's go ahead and get to the real meat and potatoes, alright? You know, chapter 281 just came out. And I just want to say that this has to be one of the best and most impactful chapters I have ever read for My Hero Academia. Mostly because it contains so much things just jam-packed in total. You get a bunch of character moments from like the superiors, from the elders. You get some action that is, you know, while there's not a lot of action, it's meaningful, it's impactful action. And of course, in my opinion, the biggest things you get from this chapter are you get two distinct looks into the characters of who are soon to be arch enemies of Shiggy and of Deku. So let's go ahead and dive in here on my overall chapter review and discussion. You know, the whole review part is pretty easy, alright? This chapter was great, okay? This chapter is great. And it starts off with already Shiggy remembering his father saying, for the sake of society, a hero is one who abandons their family. So we're, you know, this chapter focuses a lot on Shigaraki's past and really delves into his motivation for doing things, and it kind of always reminds you. And Shiggy really has some great lines in this. If you can't tell already, Shigaraki is basically he's my baby. He pretty much can do nothing wrong. All of the things he says, all the actions he does, he just looks fucking cool, right? And I love the things he says in this chapter. So just for a little bit of a context here, Aizawa is still looking at Shiggy erasing all of his quirks with the one hero that can like water his eyes. Gran Torino is on the site along with Bakugo, Deku, and Endeavor, who are taking on Shiggy. So we pick up right on chapter 281 titled Plus Ultra, and we start off with or not start off, but that was the title card. I just gave you a bunch of the prologue. But we start off with Shigaraki getting up from an attack, and he says heroes have been pretending to protect society. And then he says, how many times in the past, throughout multiple generations, have they turned a blind eye to things they couldn't protect, or silently swept the filth of society under the rug? And this is a big callback, because he's talking to, obviously, Endeavor, who is the current top, number one, and then Bakugo and Deku, who most likely will be the, you know, number 1 and 2 of the future. He's talking about the flaw in hero society, and we flash back to when young Tenko was walking through the streets, right, you know, fresh off of his family's murder, when no one turned a blind eye and helped him. He says it's been building up so furiously, you know, so soon a hero or police officer, someone will come and help you. The result emanates from within, and decay ensues. And he just has, you know, the inner monologue where he says, it's the small accumulation of this rot inside you, the trash, coddled by being protected all the time, the role players who only serve to spoil the meek society. The destruction that will ensue is merely a result of all the reckless grandstanding that you have accumulated. So he's basically calling out all the heroes, right? Because Tenko was abandoned. You take a look at, there are so many characters in the hero society. For example, we have people like Stain, you have people like Gentle, you know, Overhaul, Nine, and Shiggy. All, you know, villains who were kind of, you know, they exposed the flaws in the current society. Specifically Nine, Overhaul, and Shiggy, who were orphan children who were never helped by anybody, and then Gentle and Stain, who exposed the flaw in just society itself, when staying exposes people who take monetary value for a heroic action, and then gentle for just wanting to make a name for himself and kind of getting denied being a hero. So we then get probably the scan that everyone saw, the scan that everybody saw in the spoilers, the video that I made. It's in my thumbnail. And Shigaraki just says a fucking beastly line, a fucking animalistic line. He looks up and he says, "You don't need to understand. In fact, you're incapable of understanding." That's the dichotomy of heroes and villains. And villains and heroes have like the quotation marks around them. So it's presumably, he's kind of, saying heroes and villains because they're subjective, right? And obviously, at this point, Shigaraki is long gone. He's just kind of shouting shit. Yikes, alright. And, other than that, he's kind of just, he's kind of balling. So pretty much, Endeavor takes advantage of that monologue by flying at Shigaraki with a humongous just hell. It's literally a fucking hellfire, bro. Like, there's just flames all over the panel. And Shigaraki dodges it somehow. You can see Endeavor is very surprised by this, and once again we get such a beastly scan of Shiggy, bro. He has like this shading around him that makes him look like a fucking demon, dude. He's literally a spawn from hell at this point. And he gets above Endeavor, but before he's able to take advantage of Endeavor, this is where we get the Ex Machina. In comes in Gran Torino, who then explains that Endeavor has been kind of going, he's been fighting at full power. He's been fighting a little bit too hard because he's exhausted himself from using so many of his moves, when Shigaraki is not looking like he's having any stamina issues whatsoever. So this is where we get to, I don't know how to explain it, but this is where we get to probably one of the biggest moments of the chapter. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but this was in the spoilers. This is probably one of the big moments that we all needed, or not needed. This is one of the big moments in the chapter that goes on to fuel the Deku side of this chapter. We've already seen a bunch of Shiggy. We've already seen a bit of a more. We've seen more of his motivation for what he does here. But this is the beginning of when Gran Torino leaps right onto Shiggy and basically hits him into the ground. And Gran Torino's not an idiot. Alright, Gran Torino knows that you have to get away from Shigaraki as fast as possible, because if he even touches you, you can just be instantly decayed. And while Gran Torino knows this, Shigaraki just has an unhuman level of speed. And he grabs Gran Torino's foot and then slams him into the fucking ground. And he just literally slams him in. We see Endeavor, Aizawa, Bakugo, they all see it, and then of course Deku then yells out his name, and then Shigaraki says, "What kind of face is that, Shimura?" And you see Gran Torino's kind of having a flashback, because he's seeing the face of, what is presumably his, I don't know how to say it, his partner, his master, his lover, who knows at this point. Presumably seeing the face of someone who was close to someone he cared about. This is not the face he expected. Shigaraki was born of a great prestigious hero family, and a lot of people, Gran Torino doesn't expect to see the face of pure hatred and pure evil in front of him. And we then get a flashback to when Gran Torino was with Nana Shimura, who were overlooking, this is presumably Shigaraki's family, his mother being sent away, and we see them, and then we get a flashback of Gran Torino having a conversation with Nana Shimura. All Might's former master, the former holder of One for All. And she's talking about the things we already knew, which are, how Nana Shimura had a brother and that she had to abandon and kind of cut herself off from her family in order to prevent All for One from taking advantage of her. And Nana Shimura says something very interesting. And she says, I never had a child. He doesn't exist. And then she says, heroes, or then she says, Sorahiko, I never had. And then we get a flashback to Shiggy, who says, or Shiggy's father, who says, heroes hurt their own families to help complete strangers. Dad told me that. Shimura, our choice. And we see Gran Torino's lying on the ground, and then we get a flashback to Nana Shimura crying in Gran Torino's arms right as Shigaraki plunges Gran Torino into the ground. And we get a big load of blood here, that I believe is blood, and this sends Deku into a frenzy. So let's go ahead and back up here and talk about what just happened here. So basically we got a first-hand look at Shimura and Gran Torino deciding to abandon her family, or her brother's family, and then we see Gran Torino, who knew who Shiggy was, now beginning to realize the scale, not the scale, but the ramifications. As a car goes right past my window, who cares if you heard it? He's beginning to understand the ramifications of his actions, and the fact that we see Shimura crying into Gran Torino's arms really gives us a bit of an emotional impact here, because she's crying at the fact that she had to abandon her family, and she's also crying at the fact that her grandchild has just fallen so far. Now, some people have been saying that Gran Torino was romantically involved with Nana Shimura, and that he could be Shigaraki's grandfather. And I don't know about that. We'll see. But this also brings up the question, because a big thing is that we don't hear or see from Gran Torino for the rest of the chapter. I think it's safe to say he's at least critically injured. In my opinion, I don't see why Shigaraki wouldn't just decay him instantly and kill him. But it's possible for Gran Torino to be alive, but in my opinion, I don't see him making it out of this battle alive, personally. So this sends Deku into a frenzy where he runs at Shigaraki, much to Endeavor's dismay, as we see a humongous explosion as Deku launches out at, one for all, full cowling, whatever. And Shigaraki dodges it with intense speed as Bakugo didn't even see it. And this is where we begin to switch sides from the villain side to Deku's main point of view. So it's kind of interesting how we start off the chapter in such a big, emotional, dark way, and right when Gran Torino gets his ass handed to him is when we switch and we get a complete 180, and now we're viewing the perspective, reviewing the thoughts of our light side protagonist, our main hero here in Deku. So we then flash forward to Ryuko, who is flying, she catches Shigaraki trying to prevent him from getting to Eraserhead. But Shigaraki just fucking beats the shit out of her hand. Like she grabbed him with both hands, right? Like a typical dragon hold. And he just fucking launches the shit out of her fucking arm, dude. Like, he just fucking pushes it away. An interesting thing here, though, is that Shigaraki thinks to himself, I'm losing stamina in my body. So that's interesting, because you do have to remember Shigaraki was at 75% when he did his think tank or whatever the fuck it's called. So he's not perfect. He's not as perfect as he could be, but he's also still as OP as fuck. But it does look like things are beginning to take a toll on his body, because this is presumably the first time he's used All for One. So he does have to get used to it, I would think. But then we get to the big climax of our chapter as Deku, yells Shigaraki and just fucking grabs his neck, dude. Grabs his neck. And then we get the big, dual face panel. This is going to be our big, hero-villain relationship. Presumably the biggest one in My Hero Academia. When Shigaraki says, I can't forgive the likes of you, I don't forgive any of you. And then Deku proceeds to wrap his arm around Shigaraki's neck right as Shigaraki just unloads a mean elbow right into Deku's stomach, who he winces and coughs up blood. However, Deku unloads Black Whip. So Deku uses Black Whip to completely wrap around Shigaraki, basically kind of mummifying Deku on his back, pulling a full-on like Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, where Deku's just Yoda, just fucking chilling on his back. Endeavor tells him to maintain that position as Endeavor charges up a massive fucking strike, just a beastly strike. And this is very reminiscent, if I can speak, of the Dragon Ball Z Raditz fight, where Goku was holding Raditz back as Piccolo charged up the Special Beam Cannon. This is kind of what's happening here. Deku's holding back Shiggy as Endeavor is charging up his big attack. And then the big cliffhanger of the chapter is right as Endeavor is coming at Shigaraki in that split time frame. Shiggy reaches into his pocket and he says, "They still don't know I've got this," as he takes out the quirk destroying bullet. And we flash to a panel of Eri smiling happy with her UA family, as we presumably do not know what Shigaraki is going to do with the quirk erasing bullet. Now, before I end this here, this is kind of long, I do want to say that there are multiple possibilities he could do with the quirk erasing bullet. He could throw it at Endeavor, cripple Endeavor. He could throw it at Eraserhead and basically eradicate the one thing that's preventing them from winning. The one thing that's preventing Shigaraki from winning. He could shoot it at Deku, which is presumably the least likely thing, because I think he wants to steal One for All for himself. Or he can, or somehow Bakugo might get into the mix. We don't know. Maybe Gran Torino is still alive and his last action will be to take a bullet for somebody. We'll see. We'll see what happens. What is the fate of Gran Torino? Do you think Gran Torino's dead? They never mention it. I presume he is dead. And who do you think? Do you think Shiggy will miss the quirk bullet? Do you think someone will get hit? Put your predictions in the comments. We'll see what happens as the spoilers come out next week for what's going to happen, because this chapter fit a lot of stuff in and it carried a lot of emotional impact and had a pretty much, left me with a heavy heart almost.